People will tell you it can't be done. They'll say your dreams are grandiose. Don't listen. Replace your discouragement with compassion, understanding those words only come from someone who never had the courage to fail.
Was there a struggle? Were there times where you had to tell people, I've got this?
Yeah, 100%. I'll never forget, I started out my TV career as a traffic reporter in Dayton, Ohio. It was very glamorous. And I talked to my boss and I asked him, I'll work for free, like double shifts, and I'll do general assignment reports, like stories, and if they're good enough, you can put them on the air, and he agreed. So I was doing this ridiculous schedule, getting, up at 2:30 in the morning, doing the morning show traffic, and then staying and doing general assignment reports, and, just basically just working my butt off forever, and they would start putting my stories on. So more and more my stories would be aired, and I was just thinking like I'm on top of the world. So after like probably 6 months of that, I thought, okay, I'm going to go in there and tell him okay, now can you please hire me as a reporter? So I went in and made my pitch, and I'll never forget, it was the news director and the executive producer, and they looked at me and said, yeah, you just don't have what it takes for this job. And I was bawling. I mean, now, this was before, I was very young, and I had zero sense of decorum about crying in my boss's office. I was just like, what? I was devastated, and I felt like my life was over, and this was the worst thing in the world. So, and funny, I'll tell you, flash forward to when I made the announcement about WCBS, that same man sent me a personal email saying, congratulations, I'm not always right.
I was going to ask you specifically, I actually have someone who kind of told me no many years ago, and they never thought that I would rise up.
Yeah.
And I now have a significant title, and I want so bad to email him and be like, hey, remember me? So I kind of love that he reached out to you himself.
It was very gracious. It was. And the thing is, though, I needed that. You don't appreciate any achievement unless you've been knocked down and told you can't do something. You just don't. So I used the momentum of disappointment to put together this resume tape, and I interviewed in a few small towns. I ended up in Lexington, Kentucky, which is not that small, but it was my news boot camp. I learned everything from the best executive producer I've ever met in my life. And, I was roughing it in the hills of Appalachia every night, knocking on trailer doors. I was at the Kentucky Derby. I was doing UK sports. I did breaking news every single night. It was everything that I didn't know I needed. Mm-hmm. And she was the first person who said, you're going to go very far in this business. This was 6 months after the man I had worked for said, you're not cut out for this business.
So I love this because there's a lot of women who will say, this is great. You guys you've been successful. Do you have the ladder to get there? And sometimes what I tell them is the ladder, it's the struggle. That, like you said, It's your boot camp.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to a woman who is kind of looking at, I don't know that I can get where I see myself. What would you say to her with all of that experience?
Trying. I mean, the bottom line is, when I wrote this, when people discourage you, I truly believe they have never had the courage to fail. Mm-hmm. You have to be willing and even comfortable knowing you're going to fail, because you are. We all do. But that's just part of the journey. That doesn't mean that you are not cut out for something or that you're not going to get the next job, but you are going to fail. And it's just going to happen. And I think that the people who have never been able to be comfortable with that concept want everyone else in their world to play it safe. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, the women who are watching this, most of them are probably not wanting to play it safe. They're probably wanting to take a risk and just don't know if they should. My advice would be, if you have that urge in your gut, you're one of the ones who should. Mm-hmm. Anyone who has an urge.
That's powerful. I just got goosebumps. That was very powerful.
Well, thank you.